Government's migrant bill has been strongly criticised in the House of Lords today. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, was among those who made passionate interventions.
Of course, we cannot take everyone, and nor should we. But this bill has no sense at all of the long-term and of the global nature of the challenge that the world faces. It ignores the reality that migration must be engaged with at source as well as in the channel. It is isolationist. It is morally unacceptable and politically impractical to let the poorest countries deal with the crisis alone and cut our international aid.
I'm joined now by two members of the House of Lords, Conservative peer Andrew Robertson and crossbencher Richard Dannatt, with very different views. Shall we start with you, Lord Robertson, please, and can you explain to my listeners and viewers why it is you feel so passionately about this?
Well, first, can I say that I thought the Archbishop did a very good job on Saturday. I'm a paid-up member of the Church of England. And I value what he has to say. Unfortunately, on this, he's entirely wrong. He said we can't take them all. Of course, we cannot take everyone, he said. Mm-hmm. Well, perhaps he might say how he would differentiate between people that he thinks we can put a cap on it. I mean, how many million people wish to come here? And yesterday we had a report that over 600,000 immigrants altogether from outside the EU came last year, will come this year. And are you surprised that the NHS is buckling under the strain? Are you surprised that there isn't enough housing? And for those that want to see open borders, they must then support the idea that we build more houses, whereas the Greens and the Liberal Democrats in the local elections were campaigning against further development. Now, we have to be logical on this. There are too many people coming to this very crowded island, and I'm afraid to let people come in illegally is ridiculous. And the people of this country, the great British public, is absolutely opposed to illegal migration. And I have to say to those that support this bill, that oppose this bill, they are on the wrong side of the British people. That's not that we shouldn't look at the moral side, but of course we should. But then people that are coming from France are not fleeing persecution in France, as far as I'm aware. They're coming here because the life here is better, and I quite understand why they want to come here.
And what would you say, Lord Robertson, to those who say that whatever's in the bill is mere grandstanding because none of it's ever really going to happen? It's a kind of showboating bill. It's setting out a stall of the impossible, the unattainable, that you know, sending anyone on a plane to Rwanda is always going to be stopped before the plane has liftoff, that this boat that's meant to be housing lots of illegal migrants will never really ever actually float. That a lot of it's being said and set out in order to achieve a certain kind of PR effect, but it's not real. It's never really going to happen.
Well, I disagree. I think that's a counsel of despair, frankly. The point is that every effort that this government has made to reduce illegal migration has been thwarted in the courts by what we have learned to call lefty lawyers, including Keir Starmer. There's always objections to it. Our laws, which are governed by the ECHR, this was all brought in under the Blair government, who, if you may recall, actually promised to, or according to Alistair Campbell, said that he wanted to change the face of Britain quite literally. And, you know, the people of this country, they have a say too, not just people, unelected members of the House of Lords, but the people of this country, they should have a say too. And actually, the people that live in this country generally wish illegal migration and indeed mass migration to be prevented.
Let me bring Lord Dannatt in on this one. So, you know, we have a fan of the bill there. What about you?
Well, we all agree that there is too much immigration into this country, and a large measure of it is by illegal or unofficial, unauthorized means. So I think there's no disagreement about the fact that this form of migration across the Channel, which is very dangerous, has got to be stopped. But then the big question is, and that's what their lordships are debating now, is whether this bill is the right way to go about it. Now, the fact of the matter is that under our Constitution, the House of Lords will pass this bill, but there's going to be a lot of debate on amendments to the bill in the coming weeks, in our view, to improve it. Now, it's fine to say, OK, this bill isn't going to tackle it in the right way. What else should we be doing? Well, the heart of the problem are the trafficking gangs who are making a lot of money out of these unfortunate people who want to come to this country. International police authorities, organisations should be working together to identify who these traffickers are, hunt them down, arrest them, charge them, and put them through the courts. Then those who do come to this country need to have their asylum claims looked at as quickly as possible. Now, currently, the Immigration Service has got a very poor record of dealing with these things in a timely fashion. So what the Home Office should be doing, amongst anything else, is putting much more resource, much more money into the asylum service, so that those who are genuine political asylum seekers are allowed to stay in this country, and those who are here purely as economic migrant, economic improvers, are sent back to the countries from which they came. That is perfectly reasonable. This odd policy of detaining people and sending them to Rwanda. Rwanda can only take a few hundred at best. There are no other countries that have signed up to this scheme at the present moment. So this, I'm afraid, is a lot of grandstanding. And by the government's admission, it's a deterrent bill. It's a pretty nasty deterrent bill. And just the last thing is there are aspects of this that are going to flout international law and international conventions. Many of those, the UK was the leading element in putting together after the Second World War. Do we really want to be party to flouting the international regulations and conventions that we've had a hand in drawing up? That's embarrassing and actually potentially going to trash the reputation of the UK. We've got to stop the boats. We've got to stop people being brought to this country in an unfortunate way. But this bill is not the way to do it. Yep, it'll get through the House of Lords. It'll get through in an amended fashion. And but that's not going to be the end of the story. There have been many other things that have got to be done to reduce this problem.
Lord Robertson, do you accept that it's embarrassing, it's shaming to infringe bills that we ourselves were party to drawing up, that this does lack a moral kernel, it lacks the milk of human kindness and many other things?
We may show a lack of human kindness. I think people of this country will say, actually, at last somebody's trying hard, and is trying, I don't say it'll be totally successful, but is trying hard to stop illegal migration like this. And it's illegal. So people that come here in small boats are coming here illegally, breaking the law by coming here. If Richard Dannatt can tell me that they're being persecuted in France, I'd be surprised. Under the Human Trafficking Act, the illegal immigrants are told that if they say they're being trafficked, they will get let in. And that's what they're all saying. There's been a speech already that I heard that we can't send people back because if they're LGBT, they will be persecuted. Well, of course, then people are told to say they're gay. I mean, we need to stand up for the people of Britain, not unreasonably, unkindly, but we need to say we will not let people break our laws to come here. I don't think that's extreme. And by the way, the Convention on Human Rights, 70 years old, over 70 years old, was drawn up when there were literally millions of people going across Europe, refugees after the Second World War, in a very, very different situation. The world has changed, but unfortunately, the European Convention, which we helped draw up, is being used against us. Our tolerance is being used against us, and we are looking like fools. And I'm afraid the idea that people come here because they're being persecuted in France is for the birds.
Lord Dannatt, it's for the birds, or is it? Is it for the birds, the idea that people should be perfectly happy in France and, you know, enjoy a safe and a secure existence there and don't need to come here at all and therefore don't need to be treated in a kind and fair manner because they shouldn't be here in the first place? They should just stay there?
I heard it said so many times in the House of Lords today that they are coming from a perfectly safe country, France, across the Channel to risk their lives. Why are they in France? They're in France purely for the single purpose of coming to Great Britain. That's the bottom and the top line of that. What we have to do is to find safe and legal ways that they can come here. They can then have their asylum cases assessed. Those who should be here should be granted citizenship or right to remain and put to work in our economy. We have a labour shortage. And those who have got no right to be here because they're true economic migrants are sent back to where they come from. Vanessa, I've got to leave you for another appointment. So thank you for having me on and good evening.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, Lord Robertson, as you're staying the longer, you have the right to the last word, therefore.
Well,
may I just ask you something? Why do you think that there is such an inability or lack of desire to to process people quickly. And I'm talking about all the people who are in this country who can't work, can't earn a living, can't pay tax and are waiting to be processed. And a certain quite high proportion and percentage of them will be found to have the right of asylum here or the right to have refugee status in the end. But why is it so slow? Why is it this perpetual snarl up when we see the front page of the Telegraph today and everywhere else that they're going to make apprentices out of doctors? Doctors will be able to join and be an apprentice doctor straight out of A-levels. Why can't they recruit a few people to process these individuals who are hanging around at vast expense?
Well, Vanessa, you're broad in the subject here. I mean, there's over 500,000 people on, over 5 million people on out-of-work benefits, who are, many of whom, probably 3 or 4 million, are perfectly capable of working. But we've got into a stage where the benefit system is being ridiculously abused. Look, my friend Lord Dannatt just said that they come through France because they want to get to the UK. But this is a choice. The Refugee Convention says you should apply for asylum in the first country you get to, which was probably Italy or somewhere like that. They come here because it's a very attractive place to live, contrary to what you will hear from many people sitting in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. It's a very attractive place to live. It's very people are very tolerant, very, very welcoming. And by the way, you get good benefits and you get a good health service. And that is what is crippling the health service. And that is one thing that's crippling the health service. And that is what is driving this desire to build hundreds of thousands of homes, which a lot of people do not wish to see built. So I'm afraid, we have to understand this. And I go back to my points. They come here, and the reason there's a snarl up in asylum is because they claim they're either gay, so they can't be sent back to a country that is against them, or they claim that they've been human trafficked. They've been trafficked by people to come here, and so they can't be sent back under the Human Trafficking Act. And they find all sorts of lawyers who will stop them being sent back. And I'm afraid we need to be more robust. And it's all very well saying that the government has failed, and the government has not got a good record in this, but we are thwarted at every step, at every turn, by what we wish to do. And what we're trying to do, I suggest, is fulfill what most of the British people would like to see done, which is stop illegal migration and reduce overall the amount of migration in this country.
And do you think that the record so far indicates that this government simply isn't up to the task, that so far the solutions, in inverted commas, the suggestions, the strategies and the plans have come to nothing? They've really amounted to nothing but a hill of beans. They've been hot air. You've discussed them. We've discussed them. There have been endless column inches written about them. Lots of people have been horrified. Some people have thought it's terrific. Nothing's happened. Nothing at all. Even Suella Braverman was on record saying, it would be the greatest joy of her life to hear one plane taking off on its way to Rwanda. Well, she's still waiting for the greatest joy of her life. I mean, the whole thing is, you talk about what's an embarrassment. Isn't this an embarrassment?
Vanessa, what the government is trying to do is it's trying to do this. It's thwarted at every turn by lawyers, by NGOs, by laws by which we are bound. We're trying to change the law now. Give the government credit for trying to do something, and God willing, this will succeed. And I heard the Archbishop say that it's morally unacceptable that we should do this. I disagree. I think it's morally unacceptable to let people break our laws. I think it's morally unacceptable to use the term David Blunkett used, to swamp the people of Britain with people from outside. And look, I wish them no ill. These are people that want to come here to better themselves. But so far this year, I understand over 10,000 Albanians have come here. Now, Albania is not a country that is where people are in danger. It's not. It's an applicant for the EU, and I really think that we have to be a little bit more robust in our response, and we have to actually change the law, which is what the government is trying to do today, to address these issues. And I think the people of this country are on the side of the government. Not always, and not on everything, but on this they are. They're on the side of this government, and they want to see the boat stopped, and they want to see migration brought down to sensible levels. And part of the bill, I understand, includes a cap on the total number of asylum seekers let into this country each year.
I hear there was a clamour in the House of Lords today to speak on this issue. I think 86 peers wanted to be seen and to be heard. If the majority of peers succeed in throwing this bill out, Do you think this will be a betrayal of the British people, a failure to acknowledge what people really care about, and a kind of, you know, showing of muscle by peers who haven't been elected and therefore will put the country in a tailspin of fury? Or do you think that peers really are the moral guidance, I suppose the prick of the conscience that we need, and you know, our guiding stars to stop us falling into terrible iniquity? I mean, do we need you to do this stuff to stop us?
Well, certainly sitting in the House of Lords, which I can assure you that we are not the moral conscience. Now, the Church of England tries to be moral conscience, but I think sometimes it gets its morality wrong. But the people that are going to, the Liberal Democrats that are, for instance, pushing this, an amendment today, are certainly not the moral conscience of anybody, or particularly morally admirable. What we need to do is understand that we have to balance what is right for this country and what is right for the people of this country with a decent, tolerant attitude towards others. And I hope this bill will do that, and I hope it will stop the illegality of people getting in small boats, driven by traffickers, crossing the channel from a perfectly safe country to come here. And actually, that will stop a lot of people crossing anyway. And the whole idea of sending people to Rwanda is, of course, a deterrent. If people know they'll get here and be sent away, they won't come here. And surely that's the right thing to do.